Hello, everyone. How is everyone this evening? I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. My name is Stacy Pinero, Associate Producer of Public Programs here at the Museum of Jewish Heritage. Before we begin, I need to actually point out the fire exits. To my right, if you use these doors, it will take you to Battery Place. Behind me is actually another exit, and it will take you to Wagner Park. And then the last two exits are actually, if you use these two aisles, and you will find yourself in the lobby in which you came in. I'm pleased to welcome you to the museum for tonight's discussion on the broken American male and how to fix him. In Rabbi Shmuley Boteig's latest book, he explores the problems facing men today and offers inspiring solutions with his trademark humor and gentle nudging. Rabbi Boteig will discuss the work which author Noah Feldman calls a book that can make a difference, with New York One's Bud, Michigan. Rabbi Shmuley Boteig is the host of daily national radio program, The Rabbi Shmuley Show, on Oprah and Friends, XM Satellite Radio. He is also the international best-selling author of 19 books. He was the rabbi of Oxford University for 11 years and is an award-winning syndicated columnist. In 2007, Rabbi Shmuley was labeled a cultural phenomenon, a cultural phenomenon and the most famous rabbi in America by Newsweek magazine, and was named one of the 10 most influential rabbis in America. Bud, Michigan is the host of New York's One weekly profile series, One-on-One with Bud, Michigan, which profiles influential New Yorkers who have significant and professional ties to the city. Among those profiled are Wynton Marsalis, Nora Jones, Pete Hamill, Bobby Flay, Rachel Ray, Mike Wallace, Donald Trump, and John Turturro. Mr. Michigan was one of New York One's original employees, having started in 1992. He served as a sports anchor and reporter, as well as a features reporter for the channel. After their conversation, there will be a Q&A, and we'll have 2 roving mics in the audience. The book is also available for sale this evening, and Rabbi Shmuley will be signing books. I'd like to ask everyone to please turn off their cell phones and pagers, and please welcome Rabbi Boteig and Bud, Michigan to the stage.
Welcome. Thank you for coming tonight, Rabbi. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for interviewing me, Bud.
Congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
Now, I understand, first of all, we okay on audio? Everybody can hear us? If we speak out? Great.
I should just mention before we begin, this is the coolest water I've ever had on a stage. It usually comes in a glass. Just look at that. That's something that you want to give as a gift to someone. Okay.
At the end of your book, you talk about how the idea came about. The column that you wrote brought a lot of reaction as far as your own situation. But were there inklings before that, in your travelings, in your writings, in your work in general, in which you started to think, this goes beyond just the everyday struggles that we all face? This is different from the past, even 10 and 20 years ago, that there's a new situation in America and that the American male is indeed broken.
Well, let me begin by saying, first of all, I want to thank the museum for hosting the 2 of us, and Bud, thank you for interviewing me, and thank you all for coming this evening. It's not that pretty outside, so you had no other excuse. There was something to do outside. The book is very autobiographical. One of the first reviews of the book said that I undermined my argument by speaking of myself in terms of being a broken American man. In other words, if you're not fixed yourself, why are you writing to us? Well, none of my books are like that. I'm never going to try to be someone I'm not. I have wrestled with the issues that I detail in this book all the time, and I think they are being exacerbated and magnified by modern culture. In other words, the problem is simple. What happens to men when you immerse them into a capitalist society for their entire life? When they are competitive, always. What does it do to their soul? What does it do to their self-esteem? What does it do to their ability to relate to their wives, to be in relationships, to inspire their kids? My argument is that it begins to break them, little by little. Because they never know any rest. They never get to be human beings. They can't just be. They don't feel loved when they just are. They're always human doings. Men are appreciated for their achievements, their accomplishments. Look at the names that we just heard, Bud, the people Bud interviewed. before the show began, before the interview began, I heard Donald Trump mention, I know Nora Jones was there as well. Yes, women are also judged by their achievements, but a woman can still sit in one place, look attractive, and people are drawn to her when she's doing absolutely nothing. That is almost impossible with a man. We're drawn to men through their achievements. And I think it's much worse now because our society has become hyper-competitive. Look at Wall Street. The New York Times did a story about hedge fund managers yesterday, and it said that, maybe it was even today, it said that up until a few years ago, the hedge fund industry was the most reliable producer of millionaires. And now, because of the economy on Wall Street, they're not making as much money. Just think about that. You can be a millionaire at 25 or 26. The expectations have grown so much that those of us who aren't begin to look at ourselves as failures. When I arrived at Oxford University as rabbi in 1988, our students still wanted to be doctors and lawyers, accountants, there were other professions. Nowadays, you go to the elite universities, America's Ivy League universities, they all want to be hedge fund managers. The rewards are so great, the money is so large that men are defining themselves entirely by one thing, and that is professional success. Now, when our lives become that far out of kilter, that far out of balance, when we have nothing of the personal to define who we are as people, then we become automatons, we become robotic. Should we really be surprised that the #1 complaint of marriage, and if you're married and you're a woman, you might know this, the #1 complaint in marriage, by far, on the part of American wives, is that he won't talk to me. He won't tell me how he feels. He doesn't know how to be. He doesn't know how to express his emotions. If you ask him to do something, he's reliable. Fix this. Support the family. He feels comfortable in doing. But the moment he stops doing, he sinks into the couch. That's a crisis. It's a major crisis.
At what point, I mean, in your book is chock full of examples of men who you call broken. Why do you think it's at a point where men are broken as opposed to dealing with the issues, juggling love, marriage, family, work, and duty? By duty I mean being a member of the community, which have been struggles, I would imagine, for the last 100 years in America.
Okay, the reason is this. There are things happening in our time, Bud, specifically in our time, which are so alarming and so troubling, and that pertain to this brokenness in men that they can no longer be ignored. Let me give you some examples. Number one, 3/4 of all divorces today, according to the Rutgers University Marriage Project, are initiated by who? Men or women? Women. I lecture around the United States, and whenever I ask this, are you divorced? Half the hands go up, which is the national average. And then I say, to the women alone, how many women here, it was your choice, you decided to leave the marriage, and nearly all the hands go up. That's astonishing. Think about this. And by the way, I think 3/4 is a conservative number. The number is now about 12 years old. I'd like to see the most recent data on this. Think about this. When a woman divorces, especially with children, according to Harvard University, her income goes down by about 60% in the first year. So it's a catastrophic financial decision. The chances of her ever remarrying are remote, about 30%. There's a famous statistic, you know, that a woman 35 and over who's single in America stands a greater likelihood of being in a terror attack than getting married. That number goes up when she has kids and it's difficult to date, or not every guy wants to marry a woman with kids and become financially responsible for those children. So the question becomes, why would you leave your husband? I mean, are you out of your mind? You know, the marriage isn't perfect, but stay. Isn't it better than a life of loneliness and becoming a single breadwinner? They would rather do that than be with this man who doesn't appreciate them, who doesn't love them, who doesn't talk to them, who often doesn't make love to them. So that's the first thing, is the rate of divorce. The second thing is sex. 40 million married people in America are living in platonic marriages. That's a recent CNN statistic. The other famous statistic was a Newsweek magazine cover story from October 2003 that said, again, about 30%, 1/3 of all American couples are platonic. We're talking about young married couples.